Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi LiveEnoDing. In this episode, I want to show you this geometry node setup that's dealing with 3D typography in Blender. So basically, there are a few techniques that I'm going to show you. First of all, let's take a look at the effects. So we have some kind of text, like a poetry, and it's being placed in the 3D scenes, and then you can see there's actually already like a swipe effects from left to right, so it's being refilled, right? So this is I want to show you how to do this. First of all, originally we are just using a string to curve and fill the curve, and the result will be just like a normal text. Okay, so this text comes in different lines because I'm using special characters, line break, and then join the strings that creates the poem. So there are 4 lines that's generating the text, right? I could replace it with a like a Japanese character, so we have like a haiku. Don't worry about this for now, like the weird effects going on there. So basically, anyway, we have 4 lines of text, and this text, if have certain arrangement, right? Each of the letter will have its index. Normally, if you try to refill the text, the character one by one, it's gonna go from index 0 to 1, and it's kind of refilling the text. But in this case, what's going on is the text actually refilling from left to right, like a swipe kind of effect. Okay, this is possible because I'm using the sort elements and sorting it by the instance. Okay, this is actually really quite important, and because we have this sorting weight, and the sorting weight can be adjusted using a value. In this case, I'm using the positional value of the character in the 3D space, separating it into X, Y, Z, and then just multiply it. So I'm sorting it by the X directions. If I multiply this by -1, it's gonna refill from right to the left. Okay, so that's quite important. And if you want it to be refilled from bottom to the top, yeah, you can do it this way, or you can do it -1. Yeah, so this effect is happening already. So let's keep it simple for now, just from left to the right. So you sort of understand with the sort elements, right? The second things I want to show you, so before I'm dealing with the points here, I want to show you that we can do this to the text. Okay, so when you are creating text using this string to curve, you can have as many lines of string, and this node actually does all kind of arrangement. So you can change the size, of course, but you can also change the character spacing, the word spacing, and the line spacing. So there's a lot of control. So this kind of control the placement of the font, the character in 3D space. So from there, the result is actually curve instance that you can fill, and then you can actually use the pivot points of each character, transform it into rotate instant, translate instant, and scale instances, because each of the character is an instance. So in theory, you can control the placement of the instance. You can offset and modify the placement. You can do these transformations, like rotate. I can rotate it, like that. Randomize, just basically randomize the rotations. Maybe not too much, but anyway, I'm rotating it like that. And then we can, of course, randomize the scale. And oh yeah, translate. This is the translate. I can totally offset it until nobody can read it, but I just want to keep it slightly normal. So yeah, and we can randomize the scale. So that's pretty easy to understand. One last thing, of course. so the delete geometry in this case doing the refill, I'm using the scene time and the index. If it's greater than, if the index is greater than the time frame value, just use this as a selections and doing the deletions, and just invert the deletion, so it's refilling instead of deleting. So it can do like both side, like swipe. So that's the delete. But there is one more thing that I want to show you, is that we can actually use the grid points. We can use points and the instance on points. In this case, I'm using the, I believe I'm using split to instance. This nodes actually separating the instance. In this case, since the text object's character is already instance, we don't need to split to instance. But if in case, just in case, if you have like a mesh or something that you want to separate into instance and you want to do this kind of effects, you need to use the split to instance. You can, you don't need to, but you can. In this case of text, it's already instance objects, and we can sort it, and then we can change the position of the text. For example, we can modify using random value vector, for example. Yeah, so we can really totally like scatter the text, or somewhat modify the text positions until we cannot read it because it's random in random positions. It seems that it's also offsetting the original text, which is kind of interesting points there. In this case, I want to place the text in some kind of mesh grid. You can use mesh to points in this case. Just if I have a grid and I want to reposition the text on the grid, you can do it this way. So it's kind of offsetting the text in the grid fashion. But if you just use grid mesh to points, it's gonna use the points number of the grid instead of the number of points that we need for the text, right? So sometimes we go over it. That's okay, but in this case, we actually want to sample the points. Okay, so the count. So if we are sampling the index of the grid, so we are using the grid mesh and we are sampling the index of the grid points, and just use the position of that into points that we can control. If we are doing it this way, then we have more control over the number of the points. If you know what I mean. So if we have too many points, of course it's gonna overlap, right, for the instance, because it's doing the index and instancing based on the index. But if we control the number of points, even though we are only sampling the index of the grid, even though the grid have more points than the text, than the character of the text, it will not duplicate the text because we are controlling the total number of the points itself. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. But I'm basically I'm using there's a grid mesh here, and I'm just sampling the index of the grid based on the position, the number of points, based on the number of points right here. So yeah, basically we have full control of everything now. So we have the refill based using the delete, and then we also can use these effects down there. So a lot of things going on here. So it's not like the matrix falling letters yet, but it's like some kind of typography. So we have control over the lines. We still have control over the character spacing. So it's the typography is still there. You can control the words, right? It's cool, very cool. And the size of the text. Oh, the size of the character. You can change, of course, the font itself. The font will totally affect the look of the typeface. Yeah. But there you go. The refill is happening. We can shake the text. We can control the position of the pivot. It's not exactly centered, but yeah, this probably should be a better way to control the character pivot. But it's all there. Character, line spacing, word spacing. There's also a text box width. If you want to put it in a text box, you know, like to make the text kind of more inside the text box. In this case, we don't need that. Just zero it out, so it's reset itself into lines. Yeah, that's basically what it is. The text, if we want to turn it into some kind of animations, we can try using Hedra. So I'm I'm turning the text into audio, and the audio is applied into the monkey head. I don't think it works really well, but the Hedra is something you can play around with. But the original poem is from Gemini AI. Give me 4 lines of 4 lines of Japanese haiku about path to freedom and enlightenment, and then it creates this haiku in Japanese, and then this is the translation, and I just put it inside Blender, right? Seems pretty clever, but I don't know. I think this is kind of interesting. Anyway, so that's the typography and geometry nodes. So really, in theory, you have full control of each character, placement, and then the way you can swipe delete it, and you can also transform each character randomly. So you have all the full control. Hopefully you find it useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.